The bells of Valerian echoed through the marble halls, each toll louder than the last. Jungkook's heart hammered in time with them, the sound a war drum of its own. Boots thundered down the corridor. The royal guard, his brothers, his comrades were closing in. Jungkook, Seekin said sharply, stepping forward. You don't have time to think. Hand him over. Save yourself. Jungkook's jaw clenched. His sword hand trembled at his side. Hand him over. The thought scraped against everything inside him. Behind him, Taehyung's voice was velvet steel. You already know the truth, knight. The shadows that devour your borders, the curse your king fears, it is not mine. It is his. Sukden's eyes narrowed, but he did not speak. The first wave of guards appeared, shields raised, blades gleaming in the torchlight. Jungkook recognized them instantly. Minho, Taehyung, men who had shared fire and bread with him, who had laughed with him in the barracks, bled beside him on the battlefield, and now their swords were pointed at his chest. Stand down, Jungkook, Minho barked. By order of the council, that man is to be executed. Move aside. Jungkook's breath caught. Executed. The word sank heavy into his chest. He should obey. He always obeyed. That was what it meant to be a knight. Oath above self. Crown above all. But his feet refused to move. Taehyung stepped forward, fire sparking faintly at his fingertips. The guards flinched. If you want to strike, Taehyung said softly, then know this. You do not face a curse. You face the truth your king has buried in blood. Jungkook's pulse roared in his ears. He turned to Sukden, desperation in his voice. Hyung tell me he's lying. But Sukden's silence was answer enough. His eyes avoided Jungkook's, full of guilt. The betrayal stung sharper than any blade. The guards advanced. Jungkook's body moved before his mind caught up. His sword rang free of its sheath, steel flashing. Gasps echoed in the hall. Jungkook, Minho whispered, shock in his eyes. Don't do this. But he already had. He had chosen. The clash erupted. Steel against steel, fire against shield. Jungkook's blade struck with precision, disarming rather than killing. But his heart broke with each blow. These were his brothers, and yet every strike drew him closer to treason. Beside him, Taehyung's flames roared, violet fire curling down the hall, scattering soldiers who dared rush forward. Their movements fell into rhythm against steel and fire, heartbeat and breath, two forces bound by something larger than choice. At last, the guards pulled back, regrouping at the end of the corridor. The smell of smoke and sweat filled the air. Seekin stood apart, his eyes fixed on Jungkook. There was no hatred there, only sorrow. You've damned yourself, Seekin said quietly. You've chosen him. Jungkook's sword hand shook, but his voice was steady when he answered, no, I chose the truth. The words hung heavy in the air, echoing louder than the bells. And from the shadows of the high balcony above, the council watchdrobes gleaming, eyes cold. The eldest among them leaned toward the king and whispered, it has begun. The throne room of Valerian was built to inspire awe. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, scattering colors across polished marble. The twin banners of the kingdom sun and moon shone heavy above the dais. But to Jungkook, stepping inside with Taehyung at his side, the air felt suffocating. At the far end sat King Hanyul, crown of obsidian resting on his brow. His robes shimmered like gold spun into cloth, but his eyes cold, sharp, watchful were the truest weight in the room. The council flanked him in silence. Sukden stood among the guards, jaw tight, gaze flickering once to Jungkook before looking away. The king's voice rang out, smooth and commanding. So it is true. The cursed child breathes still. Taehyung pulled back his hood, letting the light fall upon his golden eyes. He did not bow. He did not flinch. You buried me in silence. You erased me from history. Yet here I stand. The king's expression barely shifted. And you brought him. His gaze slid to Jungkook, heavy with scrutiny. My youngest knight. Loyal, brave, easily swayed. Jungkook stiffened. Your Majesty, do not speak. The king's words cracked like a whip's. Then, softer, dripping with poison. You swore an oath to me, and yet you draw your blade against your brothers in the dark. Tell me, Jungkook, do you serve your king, or this abomination? The word cut like glass. Taehyung's jaw clenched, violet fire flickering faintly at his fingertips. But Jungkook stepped forward before he could speak. He saved me, Jungkook said, voice firm despite the weight pressing on his chest. The shadows attacked, and he fought them back. If he were cursed, would he not have let me die? A ripple of whispers stirred among the council, but the king only smiled. Slow, calculated. So that is how he binds you. Clever. The old magic has always been seductive, threading its way into hearts, making them believe they are chosen. His gaze locked on Jungkook, sharp as a blade. Do you know what he truly is? Shall I tell you the story your mother never lived to share? Jungkook froze. The chamber seemed to tilt. My mother? The king leaned back in his throne, eyes glinting with triumph. Did you never wonder why you had no crest, no name but the one we gave you? Why the court whispered of the nameless boy raised by the guards? You were not abandoned, Jungkook. You were hidden, born of blood the kingdom could not claim. The air left Jungkook's lungs. He felt Taehyung step closer, a silent entrer at his side. What are you saying? Jungkook whispered. The king's smile widened, cruel and certain, that you are not merely bound to him by fate. You are bound by blood. The same cursed blood that stains him stains you. He is your ruin, Jungkook, and your reflection. The words struck like thunder. The room erupted in murmurs. Jungkook's heart pounded, his grip on his sword loosening. His entire world, the oaths, the battles, the brotherhood, was unraveling in an instant. Beside him, Taehyung's golden eyes burned not with fear, but fury. Lies, he spat. He twists truth to chain you, Jungkook. Don't let him. The king rose slowly from his throne, his crown catching the light. Then prove it, knight. If you are not cursed as he is, strike him down. Here. Now. And I will absolve you. The hall fell silent. Dozens of eyes bore into Jungkook. His king, his brothers, his prince. Steel or fire, oath or heart. The choice hung like a blade at his throat. The silence was suffocating. Every eye in the throne room was fixed on Jungkook, waiting for his decision. His sword felt heavier than it ever had, his king's command pressing down like chains. Strike him down, prove your loyalty. Taehyung stood at his side, golden eyes burning, violet fire crackling faintly at his fingertips. He did not move, did not speak, but Jungkook felt the weight of his gaze like a promise. Jungkook's pulse thundered in his ears. His oath, his honor, his brother's everything demanded he obey, and yet the thought of turning his blade on Taehyung felt like tearing out his own heart. The king's voice broke the silence, soft but laced with venom. Choose, knight, your crown or your curse. The words snapped something inside him. With a roar, Jungkook's sword came free of its sheath, not against Taehyung, but against the guards who moved to strike him. Steel rang against steel as he deflected the first blow, sparks scattering across marble. Gasps erupted through the hall. The king's eyes widened, not in fear, but in satisfaction, as though this defiance was exactly what he had wanted. Traitor, a councilman bellowed. But Taehyung moved before the word could echo again. Flames erupted from his hands, violet fire racing across the floor, forming a barrier between them and the advancing guards. The throne room descended into chaos. Knights charged, shields raised, but Taehyung's fire scattered them. Jungkook fought like a storm, each strike precise, disarming rather than killing, but his heart broke with every clash against men he once called brothers. Seokjin's voice rang out above the din. Jungkook, stop this madness. His blade locked with Jungkook's, their eyes meeting, mentor against student, brother against brother. I can't, Jungkook whispered, brave rage, not when I know the truth. Taehyung pulled him back just as the king raised his hand. For the first time, Jungkook saw it not mere command, but power. Darkness coiled around the king's fingers, a shadow deeper than night, sharp as claws. Taehyung's fire flared in answer, violet against black. The two forces clashed mid-air, sending shockwaves through the hall, shattering stained glass into a rain of color. "Run," Taehyung hissed, grabbing Jungkook's arm. Reluctantly, Jungkook obeyed. Together, they leaped through the shattered window, glass and fire cascading around them. They landed hard on the palace balcony, breathless, before sprinting into the labyrinth of stone corridors. Behind them, the king's voice thundered, echoing across the halls. "You cannot run from what you are." But Jungkook did not stop, not until the cold night air met them again. The city spread wide beneath the moonlight. They were no longer knight and prince, no longer guard and exile. They were fugitives, and the kingdom of Alarion would hunt them both. The city of Alarion burned behind them. Smoke curled into the night, and the bells tolled like a dirge, echoing over rooftops and stone walls. Jungkook and Taehyung didn't stop running until the last of the palace towers disappeared behind the treeline. The forest swallowed them once more, though this time they had no shield of silence, only exhaustion and fear pressing at their heels. When at last their bodies could take no more, Jungkook collapsed against the trunk of a great oak, chest heaving. His sword clattered beside him. Taehyung sank to the ground across from him, his cloak torn, a smear of blood on his cheek where glass had cut him. Even wounded, he looked unshaken, golden eyes gleaming faintly in the moonlight. Jungkook couldn't tear his gaze away. "You're bleeding," he muttered hoarsely. Taehyung's lips quirked. "So are you." His hand lifted almost lazily, a flicker of violet flame sealing the shallow cut across Jungkook's arm. "Consider it even." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the crackle of Taehyung's fading fire. The weight of everything, betrayal, oaths, revelations, pressed heavy on Jungkook's chest. At last he whispered, "What the king said about me, about my blood, was it true?" Taehyung's eyes softened, though his voice was steady. He twisted the truth as he always has. "Yes, I feel something in you, old magic, a thread that ties you to me. But it is not a curse, Jungkook, it is a bond, one the king fears because he cannot break it." Jungkook swallowed hard. His heart pounded, not with fear this time, but with something far more dangerous. "A bond? And if I told you I don't want it?" he asked, though his voice wavered. Taehyung leaned forward, close enough that the heat of his skin brushed Jungkook's. His golden gaze held his without falter. "Then I would say you are lying," Taehyung murmured, "because every time you move, I feel it. Every breath you take echoes in mine. You can deny me with words, Jungkook, but your soul has already chosen." The air between them thrummed, charged. Jungkook's fingers twitched, itching to reach for him. For a moment, it felt as if the world had narrowed to just the two of them, as if nothing else mattered. A shriek split the night. Both men jerked their heads up. Shadows poured between the trees, more than before, their hollow eyes burning like coals. Jungkook scrambled for his sword, heart hammering. "They followed us?" Taehyung's flames surged to life, casting their faces in violet light. "No," he said grimly, rising to stand. "They were sent." The king unleashed them, back to back. Steel and fire met darkness once again, but this time, with the bond unspoken yet undeniable between them, they fought not as strangers tied by fate, but as something more. The night stretched endlessly as Jungkook and Taehyung carved their way through the shadow creatures. By dawn the forest lay eerily still once more, corpses of smoke and ash dissolving into the earth. Exhausted and bloodied, they stumbled onward until the trees thinned and the land opened into a valley cloaked in misty. At its heart stood ruinous ancient temple, long abandoned, stone cracked and worn by centuries. Taehyung slowed, golden eyes narrowing. "This place, it calls to me." Jungkook felt it too, a pull in his chest, like invisible threads drawing them forward. Inside, the air was heavy with incense long since faded. Faded murals lined the walls, two figures beneath twin moons, their hands entwined, shadow and flame encircling them. Jungkook's breath caught at the resemblance. A voice echoed softly through the chamber. "You've returned at last." From the shadows, a figure emerged, cloaked in gray, silver hair falling in waves, eyes bright as stormlight. Neither old nor young, timorous. Taehyung stiffened. "Who are you?" The stranger bowed slightly, lips curving into a knowing smile. I am Elian, keeper of the eclipse. I have watched your bloodlines for centuries. Jungkook's grip tightened on his sword. Bloodlines? Ilian's gaze flickered between them, sharp and unsettling. The curse you bear is not punishment. It is legacy. Long ago, when Shadow first threatened this realm, the moon chose two souls, fire and steel, to stand together. You are their echo, their rebirth. Taehyung's brow furrowed. Then why does the king hunt me? Because, Ilian said softly, the king is no true hero Valerian. He usurped the throne by breaking the eclipse bond. If you rise, if you claim what is yours, his rule crumbles. The words struck deep, shaking the foundations of everything Jungkook had believed. His chest etched with confusion, betrayal, revelation, destiny, all tangled. Yet beneath it all, Ilian's gaze lingered too long, too sharply. There was something hungry in it. And what do you want from us? Jungkook asked carefully. The smile widened. Only for you to fulfill your fate. But fate, my knight, demands sacrifice. The chamber grew colder. The murals seemed to shift in the flickering torchlight. Two figures entwined, but one burning away to nothing while the other remained. Jungkook's stomach twisted. A chill crawled down his spine. Something told him Elian was not merely a keeper of secrets but a weaver of them, and they had just stepped into his web. The ruins were colder the longer they stayed. Days blurred together as Jungkook and Taehyung trained under Ilian's watchful eyes. The keeper of secrets was never unkind, never openly cruel, but every lesson carried a weight, a shadow that pressed against their bonds. Ilian began with Taehyung. Your fire is wild, he said one evening, as violet flames licked hungrily at the stone floor. Born from pain, from exile. But if you let it rule you, it will consume more than your enemies. It will consume him. His hand tilted toward Jungkook. Taehyung's jaw tightened, but he obeyed. Day after day, he forced his flames into controlled arcs, shaping them into spears and shields, whips of burning light. Yet, every time, his power grew. Ilian's smile sharpened, as though the fire belonged to him. For Jungkook, the training was stranger still. Ilian insisted there was magic in him, buried, hidden by years of discipline and denial. You are steel, forged for the king's leash, Ilian said, circling him like a wolf. But beneath that you are more. The eclipse chose you because your blood remembers. Jungkook tried to feel it. Tried to reach past the caluses of swordsmanship, the rigid walls of duty, and slowly something stirred, threads of silver light that sparked along his veins when he fought beside Taehyung, when their breaths fell in unison, when their gazes locked for too long. The first time he unleashed it, the temple shook. His blade gleamed with silver fire, slicing through Ilian's illusions as though through silk. Taehyung had watched with awed. You're glowing, but Ilian only nodded, satisfied. Yes, the bond awakens. Yet, the more they trained, the more Jungkook noticed Ilian's words curdling. Each victory was followed by murmurs of sacrifice. Each lesson ended with the same refrain: power is not shared freely. One heart must break for the other to burn. At night, when the temple fell silent, Jungkook lay awake on the cold stone floor, Ilian's words gnawing at him. Across the room, Taehyung's golden eyes glimmered faintly in the dark. He looked peaceful, but Jungkook knew better. The prince carried his fire like armor, always burning, always shielding what lay beneath. And Jungkook felt it, the pull, the bond, stronger with every breath. But if Ilian spoke truth, if one of them had to die for the other's power to survive, Jungkook knew the choice he would make. And it terrified him. The storm had been brewing for days. Jungkook felt it in Ilian's lessons, the sharpness of his words, the way his silver eyes lingered like blades pressed to skin. Taehyung felt it in his fire whenever Ilian pushed him. The flames roared not with strength, but with rage. It broke on the seventh night. Ilian had summoned them to the temple's inner sanctum, where the murals seemed almost alive beneath torchlight. Two figures entwined, one dissolving to ash while the other shone brighter. He turned to Jungkook. First, you felt it, haven't you? The pull, the bond tightening. And you know what it means. Jungkook's throat tightened. You said it yourself. It's destiny. We fight together. Elian's smile was thin. No, you fight for him, and when the time comes you die for him. That is the price of the eclipse. One must fade, so the other may blaze eternal. The words struck like knives. But before Jungkook could speak, Taehyung's fire surged, violet flames snapping at the air. Enough. His voice was low, trembling with fury. You twist every truth. You speak as though sacrifice is the only way. But I won't let him die. Not for me. Not for anyone. Yelion's gaze flicked to him, calm, calculating. You would defy prophecy. I would burn prophecy to ash. The flames roared higher, spilling across the stone floor, shadows writhing in their glow. Elion's composure finally cracked. His voice rose like thunder. Foolish prince, do you not see? I am the one who gave your king his throne. I have shaped this realm with my secrets, and I will not see it undone by children clinging to love. The truth slammed into them with the force of a blade. Enemy of the usurper king. Jungkook's sword was in his hand before he thought to. Taehyung's fire curled around him, shielding, burning, protecting. Elion moved like smoke, illusions splitting the chamber, shadows rising like serpents. But together Taehyung fought, steel flashing, fire blazing, their bond weaving strength from terror. At last Taehyung's flames struck the mural, shattering stone. The chamber shook, dust raining from the ceiling. Elion staggered, his illusions faltering. You cannot run from destiny, he hissed, voice echoing through the collapsing ruin. One of you will break. One of you must. Jungkook grabbed Taehyung's wrist. We're leaving, now. They sprinted through falling stone, fire and silver light tearing open a path. Behind them, Elion's laughter followed, sharp and hollow, promising they had not escapedly delayed. When they finally burst into the night air, panting, bloodied, smoke curling from Taehyung's hands, Jungkook turned to him. Their eyes met, golden fire and silver lightened in that moment. Words were unnecessary. Elion had betrayed them. The king waited. Prophecy loomed. But Jungkook knew one thing with certainty. He would not lose Taehyung. Not to Elion. Not to prophecy, not to fate itself. The forest at the mountain's edge was quiet, almost unnaturally so. After the temple's collapse, they had run until their lungs burned, until the shadows of Elion's illusions no longer chased them. Now, beneath a canopy of stars, they finally stopped. Taehyung collapsed to the ground first, fire fading from his hands, leaving only smoke curling in the night air. Jungkook sat beside him, sword laid across his knees, silver light dimming slowly from his veins. Neither spoke at first. Their breaths were ragged, their clothes torn, ash clinging to their skin. But silence was heavier than exhaustion, filled with the weight of Elion's words. Jungkook broke it at last. He wanted me dead. That was always the plan. His voice was low, raw, and for a moment I almost believed him. Taehyung's head snapped up, golden eyes blazing even in the dark. Don't you ever say that. Jungkook swallowed, looking away. If it would save you, don't. The word cracked, sharper this time. Taehyung leaned forward, fire flickering in his gaze, voice trembling. Do you think I endured exile? Being hunted, carrying this curse just to watch you throw yourself away from me? Jungkook froze. Taehyung's chest rose and fell quickly, each breath like it hurt. I'm not afraid of fate, Taehyung whispered. I'm afraid of losing you. The words cut deeper than any blade. Jungkook's heart stuttered, his hand tightening unconsciously on his sword before he let it fall aside. Slowly, he reached out, fingers brushing Taehyung's wrist. The prince didn't pull away. Instead, his hand turned, golden fire meeting silver light as their palms pressed together. Heat sparked, not the destructive fire Taehyung wielded, not the sharp silver power in Jungkook's blood, but something gentler, deeper. Their bond hummed between them, not prophecy, not curse, a choice. Taehyung. Jungkook breathed, and then Taehyung closed the space between them. It wasn't a kiss born of destiny, it was born of fear, of defiance, of itching need. Soft at first, almost hesitant, then breaking open with desperation as though the world could shatter around them and it would not matter. Jungkook's hands found Taehyung's shoulders, pulling him closer, while Taehyung's fire curled harmlessly against Jungkook's skin, for once burning nothing but bright. When they finally parted, foreheads resting together, Jungkook let out a shady laugh. "If prophecy wants to take you from me, it'll have to go through me first." Taehyung smiled, soft and broken and fierce all at once. "Then it doesn't stand a chance." Above them, the twin moons hung low, one silver, one red, eclipsing slowly, a reminder that time was running out. But for this moment, beneath the stars, they chose each other. The horizon burned with fire. The king's army had descended upon the outskirts of the mountains, shields gleaming, swords raised. Elian stood atop a jagged cliff, silver hair glinting in the moonlight, eyes fixed on Jungkook and Taehyung like a predator assessing prey. "They have cornered us," Jungkook whispered, gripping his sword. "We can't hold them both." Taehyung's golden gaze met his, steady and fierce. "Then we don't. We fight together. Remember why you're here." At the first clash, the air erupted. Shadow beasts leaped from the army ranks, Ilion's illusions twisting them into monstrous forms. The king himself wielded forbidden magic, darkness spilling from his hands like liquid night. Jungkook fought like a storm, steel flashing, cutting through the corrupted knights. But Ilion moved like smoke, whispering into Jungkook's ear, "You could end this now. Strike him, save yourself. Only one may survive, and he is not yours to keep." The words slashed deeper than any blade. For a heartbeat, Jungkook hesitated. Doubt gnawed at him. But then Taehyung's fire roared beside him, shielding them both. "No," Jungkook growled, sword raised. "Not you. Not him. Not fate itself." Together they became unstoppable, fire and steel intertwining, shadows evaporating in their light. Ilion screamed in frustration, unleashing every trick, every spell he had learned from the usurper king, but their bond was stronger than manipulation. Even when the king's dark magic nearly engulfed them, they moved as on a Taehyung's flames burning silver paths for Jungkook's strikes, Jungkook's blade splitting shadows as Taehyung controlled the blaze. At last, Ilion lunged, attempting to bind Jungkook in a spell of sacrifice. Taehyung met him mid-air, flames clashing with silver light. Together they forced him back, their bond radiating so fiercely that Ilion was thrown from the cliff, his illusions shattering like glass. The king fell next, his corrupted power unraveling under the combined assault. As he crumpled, the shadow army dissolved, leaving the battlefield eerily silent. Jungkook collapsed beside Taehyung, chest heaving, sweat and ash covering both of them. Taehyung's hand brushed Jungkook's, golden eyes softening. "We did it." Jungkook laughed, shakily, leaning against him. "We survived." And for the first time in months, the world seemed quiet enough to breathe it. The kingdom lay in ruins, yet the first light of dawn promised renewal. Fires had burned the darkness away, and the shadows that had haunted Ilarion were gone, vanquished by steel, fire, and an unbreakable bond. Jungkook and Taehyung stood atop the highest balcony of the rebuilt citadel, overlooking the city. The twin moons, silver and red, hung low in the sky, eclipsing once more, not as a warning, but as a symbol of what they had overcome together. "They said one of us had to die," Jungkook whispered, voice barely carrying over the morning breeze. "They said the bond would demand a sacrifice." Taehyung's hand found his, fingers entwining, "And we chose each other instead. Not destiny, not prophecy. Yes." Jungkook's lips curved into a tired, relieved smile. "I thought I'd lost you so many times. I never want to feel that again." Taehyung leaned closer, resting his forehead against Jungkook's. "You won't. Not as long as we're together." For the first time in their lives, they were free, not just from the king, not just from Ilion, not just from the curse, but free to be themselves, free to love without fear. The streets below slowly came alive again. Survivors stepped from hiding, rebuilding what had been destroyed. Children laughed, merchants called out, and the banners of Valerian waved proudly in the sunlight. no longer tainted by shadow. Jungkook turned to Taehyung, golden eyes meeting silver. Then what now? Taehyung smiled, a soft, victorious curve. Now, we live. Together, we rebuild. We write our own fate. And beneath the twin moons, eclipsed yet whole, Jungkook and Taehyung finally kissed, not in desperation, not in fear, but in triumph. Fire and steel, heart and soul, bound not by prophecy, but by choice. The kingdom had survived. The eclipse had passed, and they had survived each other and themselves. At last the world was theirs.